Hello and welcome to Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana. Today we have Nuwna Re. Nuwna is a high priestess who, throughout her transformative spiritual journey, is able to channel the divine abilities of clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairaudience, and clairsentience. She is also a songwriter, a vocalist, and a musician, and she joyously answered the divine call to help people, eliciting overwhelming positive responses, creating an impact by serving humanity passionately. I'm so excited to have you, Nuwna. Thank you so much. Welcome to my show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kaya, Edina. Thank you. This is new and it's exciting, and I'm ready to get into it.
I know, I'm so excited. I know we originally connected on Instagram, and I think I was reaching out because I was interested in your work as like I think a high priestess and doing some of this clairvoyance, doing different spiritual work that you mentioned you kind of moved in that direction in your life recently. And so I'm so excited to take this opportunity to interview you and find out how you kind of came to this path and what drives this real inner purpose that you have, because I feel like so many of us have made major shifts in our life where we're moving from our old life or whatever that might look like into more spiritually led work. So that's definitely something I'm passionate about, and I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit more about on the show today.
Yes, me too. Also,
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background, because I know also you recently even changed your name because you were going from Marie Bray and now you adopted the name Nuwna Re. And can you tell me a little bit about where you got that name and how it, transformed you in this journey?
definitely. I would say this much. The name came about in the midst of my healing and my spiritual journey. I came from the oldest of six, the oldest girl of six. And my parents were creative, they were artists. And growing up, I grew up in the church, grew up in a Christian background, and I basically came up under the church as a little girl. I sang in the church as a little girl. So I would more or less say that this all came about when I was a young woman, more or less in my mid to late 20s. I'd come from a pretty traumatic childhood, a lot of trauma around my childhood, a lot of trauma in my young adulthood. And I think early on, I was pretty much led to the spiritual aspect of just kind of going within and being quiet and trying to find time to just be alone and find solace through my troubled life. And in around about my late 20s, I really kind of consciously took the step forward to address the healing around my trauma. And that process, it more or less what it did was bring me into a spiritual path. And I was early on a very spiritual person. I asked a lot of questions and to myself and to the adults around me about things that most people kind of took for granted or took verbatim if they heard to be truths. So I think that, and I actually know that through the process of my spiritual journey, just more or less began in my late 20s, I ended up like spending a lot of time, and when you're healing and you're going through a transformative place where it's a lot of inner work. And early, I started doing a lot of inner work in like in my 20s, mid to late 20s, a lot of inner work. It was more or less a survival mechanism because of a lot of things that I had dealt with in my childhood. So I was kind of led to like really go within a lot. And it was one point where I kind of affiliate myself pretty much with a conscious community, spiritual community. I delved a little bit in Islam. I checked a few religions out. I delved a little bit. I always was, inquiring, interested in finding out what different aspects of religion were. And so I kind of more or less ended up being what I say more or less on the spiritual path. And my ascension began, I think, back then. I discovered, and it was a point that I discovered that there was something different about me. And I kind of knew things before they happened. But because of a lot of things in my life, I didn't pay attention to the things that I was doing, that I started reading people using my spiritual gifts that ended up cultivating within myself after, I think, years and years of inner work and on my spiritual journey, meditating, yoga, a lot of breath work. So I was really, really, really into it. Time alone, just a person who was very conscious of where I wanted to go and with my life and moving forward in my healing, just to maintain, because it was basically to maintain myself. There was a point that happened, and I can't say for definitely, but my spirit said to me one day, read this, go and just, I was guided, inclined to ask that person, can you read them? And I was a little taken back, and I'm like, where's this coming from? Now, I remember that when I was a younger woman in my, like, maybe early 20s, just randomly, I would go in a conversation with people when I would tell them things about themselves, and they would be shocked, like, how did you know that? Well, and I was like, I don't know. So I think I've always had the abilities that were pretty dormant. And they just kind of evolved, and as I got older and through my healing process in my spiritual transformative stage, it happened to just evolve to where they're being more, even stronger. I didn't even know that I had these abilities to the degree that I have them till I was inclined to this year read someone. And from that day, I couldn't stop. And it was like, okay, well, read someone else. And I took from maybe 3 months, 4 months, where I just randomly out there meeting people, kind of vibing with people, and magnet, as far as I feel like I was like a magnet, because people would always look at me and say hi, and they would compliment me about my outfit, my head wrap, because I have a look pretty much. And so I would kind of really vibe with people a lot. And I always found the opportune time to say, well, do you mind if I read you? And I was just kind of like a trial error, because I didn't realize that I really had these abilities, not just to do one thing, but multiple things. That I found that I was telling people things about their past. I was telling people things about their present circumstances, and I was telling people things about their future. And when this was revealed, I would go and I said, okay, well, I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. And I did it for months. And at this time, it kind of took me like for a little loop, because I am a songwriter, a vocalist, and a musician. And I'm currently working with people on projects and musical projects. So it's pretty busy in my life with my work, my actual work that I do in my life and my music. And when this all kind of it evolved, I had to kind of put the brakes on everything and see what was going on with me, who I was, and where this was coming from. And because I was inclined to prompt and ask people, can I read them? And I did it for a while, enough to know that, okay, this is not something I do. This is who I am. Now, you have out here, you have people who gravitate to the title of priestess and high priestess. And I did research, and I went on YouTube and Instagram, and I said, okay, well, what is this about? And I didn't really come into the fruition of who I was until I had a dream, because I didn't even really know what a high priestess was. I related a high priestess, some type of religious structure, and I've heard it, but I never really knew exactly what it was. I had a dream one night, and in the dream, it told me to go to a particular place. It told me that I was at a particular place. And I said, okay, what is this place? And I asked the question, and upon awakening, because when I asked the question, I immediately woke up. Upon awakening, I went to research this certain particular place to find out that this particular place, the first high priestess ever to be a prominent high priestess, ever to be out known, named Edina. And Edina came out of the Sumerian culture, because she migrated from ancient Egypt into the Sumerian culture. And in my research, I find out that Edina was the first prominent high priestess, and she also was the first named author in history. And I'm finding, yes, the first named author. She did writings, and I said, okay, well, I'm a songwriter. I didn't at that point really know what it had to do with myself. And so I said, okay, well, what is a high priestess? And I come to find out at that point that a high priestess had 4 spiritual gifts. And she had all the clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clear, I think it's audience. And you could actually Google it and it would tell you that, because that's what I did. I Googled this place, and the place told me that this is where a high priestess was who had these abilities. And so I said, well, I do that. I can do that. Am I a high priestess? And so I kind of tied 2 and 2 together. And then that's when I found out, excuse me, that I was a high priestess. And not only that, the proof was I was doing the things that the high priestess did. I was reading people's past. I was reading people's present circumstances. I was doing a lot, using the extrasensory perception, which it ties into the 5 senses: taste, smell, hear, and feel, and touch, hear, and feel. So at that point, me tying everything together just basically let me know that I had these abilities that they had evolved. They weren't dormant now. They had been cultivated, and that I got them because of the inner work that I did. The high priestess is the keeper of the subconscious mind. And in order for these gifts and these abilities to evolve in me, they evolved because I did a lot of inner healing and a lot of inner work on myself. And in that inner healing and that inner work, with going deep within my soul and my heart and my mind to the extreme for such a long duration of my life, saying make over 20 years, 20 years of my life. This is not something that happened overnight. This is something that was laying dormant in me, and that it came to the point where it kind of came to the surface, to its full fruition, to the surface. When I discovered this, it was a little taunting and taken back, but it brought me a lot of joy, and because people really, really, really loved for me to tell them things to help give them clarity and insight. I found also that it kind of empowered me, because one of the things of high priestess is to serve humanity. A high priestess were consorts, and they were like liaisons in between the pharaohs and the kings and the queens back in Egypt in the community. They pretty much were the liaisons and the intermediaries between them to bring up any problem solving, anything that needed to kind of the people to look into, resolve. So high priestess played more or less various roles, but the largest role that she played was closest to the kings and the pharaohs as a consort. And they would ask and inquire with her, what do you think about that? And for her to give them kind of clarity and advice and suggestions, and people would come to them back in those times. Still like we have now. We may call them, now we would call them probably counselors or mentors.
Advisors,
but this is more on the spiritual level. I think through my ascension and through all the inner work that I've done, it brought me to this place. And it's like undeniably that this is not something that I do. And I don't get off at 5. This is who I am. And so I've kind of decided that if this is my purpose, that I accept my purpose as a divine calling, and I accept it as my divine calling, because it's not something that I can get away from. So it's who I am, and I know that it's what I'm here to do. And so I am open, and I'm pretty much kind of laying my feet at the universe to use me as a vessel to serve humanity in that way. I think of it as something real significant and important. I know that life can bring people different challenges, different situations. The level that I think that I would like to help people in making really major decisions in their life, because I can go in and have insight to help make those decisions with authority and with clarity and with truth. It's not something that pretty much that you could say is a maybe, an if so, or a maybe. I am in fact have done by my trial error. I have told people things that are actual facts and that reign true. So I pretty much am stepping into my calling. It's new to me. It's new to my family. It took a lot. is taking a lot of courage for me to step out on this, because this is pretty taboo. It can be pretty taboo to some people. People don't all, everyone is not going to look at it and think that's something that's natural, but it is natural. It's something that like I said, I was born with. It probably most likely came through my lineage, through my bloodline, in my DNA. So it's not something I went to school for. It's not a training course. It's just a part of who I am. And
yeah, I love that. I love that.
This can go where it can go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you describe it as not just what you do, but who you are, and that it's really coming from this state of finding your authenticity. And I'm sure you've had a lot of just struggles with, especially coming from like a Christian background. I wanted to kind of ask, because do you still consider yourself Christian, or have you moved away from that, or how do you reconcile some of those foundations of your kind of religious and belief system now? Because I heard, like you said, it's taboo, and actually some of the people I follow, like social media, then they talk about how psychic abilities is against what Jesus wants, and innocent Muslims think that too. So how do you kind of navigate some of those challenges, and do you still consider yourself like on a path of God consciousness or Christianity, or where do you kind of sit with that now?
I pretty sit neutral. I don't take any sides. I'm more of a natural. I don't ascribe to any particular religion, who's right or wrong, who's indifferent. I just know that we are spirit beings. And so I'm really basic. We are spirit beings. We are not of any, I don't attribute any labels to myself. I know I'm a spiritual being. And so that's what I vibe on. I am spirit guided. And so that kind of alleviates like I don't get it. It's like people don't talk about politics. They don't get into like the ring of the politics. I don't get into the arenas of the kind of debating people over religion or what's right or wrong. Or it's what I know for me to hold true is that everyone's truth is their truth. And so I don't try to make an assessment of good, bad, indifferent, or better, or right or wrong. I just go with what's basic in general for me, and that is I'm a spirit being, and I'm here on this earth. I'm having my human experience, and so everything that comes from me is from the spirit, and I don't attribute any labels to it. I'm fine. I know thus far I've always gotten some kind of shake back on me stepping out and saying. It took a little while. Initially, I did have some reluctancy and some fear around being my authentic self, but how can you hide from yourself? So it's not like if I get up tomorrow and I say, oh, I don't have to have the clairvoyance, but I don't have to be a high priestess. I don't have to, even that's a label. I can't get away from it. It's like who I am. And I know that it can tend to be taboo along the religious community, but I am there's a lot of things. I am who I am. I know that I walk in my life with authenticity and integrity, and I know that I embody the energy of love and light. My name means oh light, and it means enlightened one. That's what Nuwna means. It means oh light. It means enlightened one. So I kind of grew into my name. Evolved into my name, someone who took the time to heal and grow and develop their inner spirit and drives through the depths of their soul to be the best version of themselves. And now as I sit in my divine feminine energy balanced in my masculine and my feminine, I can speak with all authority that I know who I am today, and I have no shame about it.
Amazing. I love that. And I love how you brought in that process of we're hearing a lot about balancing between the masculine and the feminine, and even what you described with accelerating or tapping into our ESP abilities or things like that. It's really, I feel like it's happening to a lot of people now, right? We're experiencing kind of like a spiritual awakening process. All of humanity is being more focused on that balancing, right?
Shifting and elevating, yes. And it's just not me, it's humanity is shifting and elevating. And the universe is bringing in a lot of new energies. And the people who are in tune and who are aligning themselves intentionally and even unintentionally are getting these upgrades, is what I would call them, upgrades, and they're shifting with the new energy that's coming in, and we are ascending in that ascension process. Things are being revealed to many people here.
Totally.
I happen to be one particular person that's like kind of like a bang on the head overnight, but it wasn't overnight. It's been a long, conscious, bittersweet, good and bad, heart trenching, heart evolving, heart living. It's just been a whole journey, but it was so worth it. Everything that I went through, when I look back now, is so worth it, because I know that now the purpose that I've served to walk someone or guide someone else through their life struggles and obstacles, just as a human being, and then to add the abilities that I have to even make it even more encompassing and even more beautiful and even more invigorating. At this time, I have 3 mentors. I have 3 young females and under the age of 35 who I'm mentoring, and this is just something that I was attracted. I think the law of attraction brought them to me, just magnetized, and it just something that just kind of happened, and I didn't go looking for it, because I've always been someone who people would come to for counsel. And so at this current time, I am working with 3, and they're doing so well, and they're very grateful, and they're creating a bond and a type of a mentorship slash mom slash sister slash high priestess guide. So a high priestess is more or less of a guide and a counsel for people in this work that so far that I've been doing, kind of like off the record, but it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. And as a part of my ascension, that's what was, I was anointed. I've been spiritually anointed as a high priestess. It's not something that I got a certificate to put on the wall or someone gave me. I've been spiritually anointed by the creator, the source of all creation, is who gave me these abilities, and thus for a purpose. And I am honored, I'm humbled. And I do want to say something, because I don't want to forget that I can read the way that I read and the way I use my abilities, it's different forms in various ways. And I know that people use tarot and different things. I don't need any tools to read people. I don't need any tools, but I can use tools like tarot. I read through the eyes. I can read through tonation of your voice. I can read from touch, just from maybe holding your hands, and I can channel through and get what I want to get. So in that aspect, it's kind of like I know that this is something that's not new. The internet is new, but what I'm doing is not new. It's been being done forever, and going back to history. This is not new. And so I don't feel like, oh, okay, it's new and it's something that's been going on for eons and all of history. It's just now it's been brought up to the forefront with technology today, where it's at in social media and the phones and everything that's upgraded now, that people are bringing so much to the forefront. I have the ability, but I do not, and I would not. There are certain laws that I abide by, and that I make these laws for myself. And that is ones of integrity and humility and love. And from those laws that I set for myself, I never would read anyone without their permission. This just naturally, that's just what I said, what I was told not to do, and that kind of like consciously I knew not to do, because it's a violation. And so in this work, there's a lot of integrity to uphold. Then I would know the people that I wouldn't violate anyone by finding out things about them or using my abilities for nefarious reasons or for negative reasons, because there can be an aspect of this that they can go down a negative rabbit hole. But because I know who I am, and I know that I'm a pure being, and I have pure intentions, and I'm a pure vessel, and I have to just naturally abide by the laws and the rules of integrity. And I would not read anyone without permission. It's kind of like if you were asking me to invite me into your house, Then once I'm in your house, I can like go in the kitchen and the living room and ready to pick my feet up, move the furniture around. But if you don't give me permission to come in, I cannot come into your temple, your house, your subconscious mind, and reveal anything. And I would not violate that law of integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I've been in spaces where there had been someone doing readings without that like consent, like light worker consent process. And I feel like that's so important where you stand in that integrity and have certain guidelines that you're operating by and just having that awareness. And it sounds like you're doing mentorship and helping younger women who are stepping into these gifts. And I just think that's so powerful. And the work you do is amazing. It sounds like it's in alignment with source, God, whatever law whatever we call that connection to
Yeah.
divine, being more of like a pure channel and not having your own ego or your own self involved and as little as possible in that process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took a lot of kind of shaving off of that and looking at not from an ego-based perspective. And I feel like I'm proud and I'm humbly grateful and I'm honored to be anointed as, and I say anointed as a high priestess, the most high creator source of all, because it was not a choice that I actually initially made. And so I feel like I know that I have to uphold a certain integrity and a certain level of respect and honor. And I wouldn't be a disobedient to the natural reason. I was saying that I've been given. There's a purpose and a reason that these gifts have been given to me or even allowed to evolve to this point. And so with that, knowing that I have a purpose here and to take the call took me a moment to say, do I want to take the call? It's a responsibility. It's not something that you can, once you put yourself out there, that you can turn back on, because now I put it out to my family and I can hear the buzz right now. I haven't even pretty much really knowing how they're reacting to it. But the conversations that I had prior to really coming out, that I did sit down myself with a few people and talk about how I felt about who I am and how I felt about stepping and taking it somewhere and moving on it. And I love what I do. I love working with younger women, mentoring them, helping them be the bridge through in their life, through obstacles, challenges, and sometimes people they really need guidance depending on what the dynamic in their lives are. And our youth really do need direction and guidance, positive. And so for me to be used as a catalyst for that, I'm grateful and I'm honored.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how, because you described you came from a lot of childhood trauma and just had a really difficult journey. It sounds like healing through a lot of your own inner work, as you mentioned. And can you tell me a little bit about how becoming trauma informed or doing our own inner healing and trauma based work is really goes hand in hand with this sort of spiritual path? How do you see those two connected, like trauma healing and spirituality coming together? Tell me a little bit about how that process really is integrated for you.
Okay, sure, yeah. I think that, to me, once you have been more or less kind of broken up, I'm good with analogies. Once you've been kind of broken up, then the job or the responsibility to put yourself together again is on you. No one is going to can help you transform and heal and grow. So I think with knowing that I had to, because the effects of my trauma was having very ill effects on my life, and knowing that in order to change, in order to continue to live and be happy and go forward in my life, that I had to make those steps. And in making that step into healing, in the transformation that happens in the healing process, it begins in the healing process, because the healing process takes you into a spiritual journey. If you don't know that you're a spirit being, if you're not really conscious of paying attention, you just think you're running around here as a physical person, getting a job and trying to get the bag and all the whole nine yards, and you have a love in your life. Like, when there's trauma and healing comes into play, those things are not a priority. The priority for you is to feel better and to feel whole. And so when that is the thing that keeps you is at the front of your mind, foremost in front of your mind, then the spiritual journey and the healing integrate automatically. And from then it just takes work. And you're always just conscious. You make everything you do is just conscious that you feel your thoughts and everything. They kind of ride. They take this dance, and in this kind of dance, and that's the best way for me to describe it, of healing in your spirit, you begin to change and grow and acknowledge certain things about yourself on that path. And you're a babe at first, and then you kind of you ascend, or you ascend, and as you ascend, your vibration gets higher because you feel better, you get happier, you start to kind of get a neutralize, which means you feel normal and functioning in society. Because when you're not healed, or when you're kind of, like, they saying all kinds of things today, damaged, broken, then you tend to be a little oblivious, and so people don't know. It's like it's a different world. It's not, you're not connected to the world. It's a different world when you're living and existing, and from a broken place, from a damaged place. So it's almost like you have a job to do, and it takes work, it takes time, it takes dedication. Like anything, it takes persistency. It's almost like fighting for your life to exist and be happy and to thrive in society like everyone else. So, and that just kind of makes it so that you end up really just going on this journey. And because the more that you ride this dance and be in this dance, is when you evolve and you feel more connected, you feel happier, you feel more whole inside. And as that happens, you do ascend. And you ascend because you aspire to be good and do good. And that's one thing about healing. You can't do bad and be negative and be pessimistic on the healing journey.
Yeah, totally. It doesn't work, right? And it's like, I feel like so many people, so many of us are struggling right now. And what do you say to people who just feel like they can't even pay their bills right now? They don't have time for any of this spiritual or this work. It's like they just are struggling just even to get one foot in front of the other right now, or life is caving in. And like the last thing that we have to think about is, a spiritual awakening. It's like you can't even, like I said, a lot of people are just really in states of, yeah.
I would say that because I've been there too, okay, and I'm kind of coming out of that myself not too long, that your foundation, your spiritual foundation, rather it's strong or rather it's weak, is what's gonna hold you up. So it's gonna get you through those times where you can, like, where you really feel like you can't focus on yourself because you have all these challenges and these dilemmas where you're struggling to pay the bills, you're struggling to maybe keep decent clothes on with the seasons, you may be just struggling to eat well, and those are like the basics in life. And my grandmother used to always tell me, and the old-fashioned word to hold on, but always know that yourself is the most important element in it. And if you can just dedicate to taking out a certain particular amount of time where you go within and you remind yourself that this is something that you must live through and that you can get through, but to take time out for you so that all those things kind of subside, and that you can have something that you have the bond and have a crutch, and that it's not a crutch, but it can be a crutch. Because I meditate, and I meditate frequently. I I shut things down. And I know that sometimes when people are just in the survival mode, it feels like you have to be racing, you're running, but it's just the contrary. When you're in that mode, that's just the time for you to go in the other direction and go within, so you can get that direction, those answers. You can listen to that inner voice that will give you that guidance and give you the answers to things that maybe you think that can't be resolved, or you don't have an answer for at the time. But if you just sit back and trust that the way out is the way in.
Yes, I love that. Yes, we have to go through it, not around it, and we can't be avoiding these things. So yeah, I love that, because it's so important, like you mentioned, even daily practices like meditation, taking that time and that space for our own self-reflection and healing process. I feel like that's where so many people start, and that's what we really focus on in order to get these to break through and get out of these challenges in the first place. So I'm really glad you touched on that. And so it sounds like, I know I found you on social media, and you're working with some clients, some mentorship programs. It sounds like you also do readings and things like that, but I know you mentioned you're not your typical like tarot reader. So can you tell me a little bit about what you're offering right now? How do clients work with you? Where do they get in touch with you? And what's the best way if someone's interested in connecting with you? What do we tell them to do?
And I will do tarot. I can read. I've used various tools. Our oracle card, tarot, eyes, just tonation. There's no limit to actually, and that's the blessing to the ability that I have. I know that with today, what people are familiar with, to use the tools. I even am very familiar with crystals. And so I also work with crystals, and I use my crystals in regard to correlating them with the chakras, the senses of the body. So I also read using crystals. So at this point right now, I do have an email. I have an Instagram. I do readings. I am accessible.
And you do work in person or remote, right? Either one?
Person, I do virtual, remote, and I did a trial error for that too, because I was stuck personally. And so I said, well, can I do this over the virtual phone?
Yeah.
And so I did a few friends and say, hey, and I got terrific, overwhelming. It was the same. It wasn't any different. And so that's the beauty of it also too. Yeah, I definitely do virtual and in person. And it's like I can just, whatever method I can use it. Like there's different various methods. I love it that way because people feel comfortable in different aspects. Some people may not want to use the tarot. Some people may just want to, like we're sitting here right now. Like if I could read something about you, but I'm not, because I have to ask permission. But
that's all right. We'll do that after or something.
I could come on and do a demonstration. So yes, definitely, whatever's comfortable for a potential client, for what's comfortable with them, I can do. So it's various ways that I read people. So some people might feel taboo about one aspect, but then there's various ways that I can read. I do have an Instagram. I have an email that's under my name, Nuwna Knows, and I have a phone number. So we can leave that. And my information, Edna, I could leave it with you, or we can do that.
We're going to have it linked underneath the episode with all of your links to social media and contact information and all of that. And also there was a virtual event you mentioned. I think it's called Pillar of the High Priestess. Yeah. What's going on with that? Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. So I did do a virtual event, Zoom virtual event, and I call my readings the Pillar of the High Priestess, because it's an energy. The High Priestess sits between the two pillars that sat at Solomon's temple. And so I'm using that terminology for my virtual events that I will be doing monthly or bi-weekly. I had my first one, but because of the holidays and the hush, I kind of settled things back. But I will be doing virtual events where people can intentionally sign up to link on to get into Zoom like we are now. And I will do a demonstration of myself to prove and authenticate myself in the readings. And then anyone else in the room who would like a reading from after the demonstration could contact me with my information.
Oh, so, I love that.
Yes, that's something that's very exciting. I love it. I did one, but it's something that I want to launch. I want to start launching on a regular basis.
Amazing. Yeah, because it kind of builds that community around your work and brings people together as well. So that
It's
sounds amazing.
and it's live, and it's like
Yeah.
right there in the floor. It's right there. Everyone's in the room. I had the event I had was like, I think we had 12 people there, and I had I had a bystander, like a ghost person was just there observing. But I had 12 people. There was the host, myself, and 10 other people were in the first virtual event. And I got amazing responses. And so I'll be giving them just so people can see me in action, and they could, if they want, and if they could want to get a reading, I'll do a certain amount of time that's allotted to do just a demonstration of what I do, the readings. And then if they're interested, then they could always just contact me. So
Amazing. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Now you're going to have something going on so people can start to get to know you and your work and get introduced to some of these concepts if they're totally new to how these abilities work and what kind of impact they can have in their lives. So I just love that, Nuwna. I'm so glad we got to talk today and really dive into the work that you do and help bring it to the world, bring it to the people who are needing it most right now, because so many of us are struggling and confused and try to navigate this spiritual awakening process and what does this really mean. And it's great to have people who come from all different spiritual backgrounds, religious traditions, and who bring that knowledge at a really deep level and have, like you, decades of experience doing this healing work and really do it in a way that aligns with, you know, with our own internal authenticity and aligns with what we feel like is most needed for our own healing journey. So I just love that. And I know we have to wrap up soon. It's been a great conversation with you. Like, I just wanted to ask if there's any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to leave with our listeners today. Anyone we'd like to, share some positive thoughts or your final words of wisdom for our listeners.
wow, words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Well, when I think about the things that I go by in my life, it took me a long time on my ascension process to grow. And I always say to try your best to come from your heart center and not from your mind. I think when we can balance ourselves from our heart center perspective on things, the things are much lighter, because our mind always can elude us to things that are not actually facts. But when things are pretty come from the heart is a pretty place with a neutralizer. And things that come from the heart are natural and unrehearsed. And so one of my words of wisdom is to try to navigate in your life coming from your heart and not so much of your mind.
That's so important. Yeah, because our mind, it takes us, we're in these
Yeah.
patterns, these spinning cycles. The logic brain is trying to keep us safe, and the ego kicks in and doesn't want us to really do a lot of this work. Yeah. It's so important. I love that. And we did talk a little bit about that balancing between masculine and feminine energy that's happening right now. So, yeah, I love that you brought it back to the heart, unconditional love, and trying to come from that place of being in your intuition or your emotional center rather than all of this spinning
Yes.
logic that creates our everyday problems, right?
Yeah. We give too much to the mind, and we don't stay in our spirits and ask for guidance from our spirits and our hearts enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nuwna. I'm so glad we got to do this chat. And like I said, I'll have all of the links posted below this episode for anyone listening. Definitely follow Nuwna, get in touch if you are interested in her work, or obviously the Pillar of the High Priestess classes that she's doing and sessions. It sounds amazing. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Hope to talk again in the future, because I know there's like so many more areas that we could expand into on this.
Oh, we have to do a part two. There's some time
Yeah.
to kind of go by, but yes, and I would say yes, welcome and come into the Pillar of the High Priestess, and come and get
Awesome.
some love.
Get some love, girl. That's what we need in this world. Absolutely. All right, Nuwna. Thank you so much. Have a great day. It was great talking to you. Thank you. Bye bye.